Welcome to UK Theme Parks. My name's Adam and we are back again to continue our top ride countdown for UK theme parks. And today we are none other than at Thorpe Park, the nation's thrill capital, giving you our top 15 rides of all time. Let's stress that, our top 15 rides of all time from the nation's thrill capital of Thorpe Park. Hello in chat, hello Poppy, Little G World, Mel, Adventure Aaron, hello. We're going to get straight into this. We're not messing around with these streams. We're going to get straight into it for the people watching back. Now then. Starting off at number 15, I don't know how many people actually got to ride this at the park. It was at the park for quite a long time. I think it arrived in the early 90s and then disappeared in time for Samurai in the early 2000s. And that is Calgary Stampede, the TriStar attraction. I had a little bit of a soft spot for Calgary Stampede, and those of you that watch the vlogs on the channel may have seen we caught up with this ride only 18 months ago at the local fair in Guildford, not far at all from Thorpe Park, where it's been completely blacked out. You can still see reminiscence, oddly, of the old colours in the cars, and it just rode so well, and it's as I remember it at Thorpe Park. In fairness, it probably runs slightly better, to be fair, on the fair circuit than what it did at Thorpe Park. But not a lot to be honest. The Calgary Stampede actually was run exceptionally well at Thorpe Park. It was also one of the only rides at the time, if not the only ride at the time, to carry a 1.4 metre height restriction. These rides generally don't have that. They tend to they tend to have it only at 1.2, but this one at Thorpe Park was a 1.4. We've got a very small video of it on the channel, I have to say. We weren't sort of doing as much filming back then, to be perfectly honest with you. It was a lot more difficult, to be honest, in the era with actually having devices that could do that. But yeah, this sat where Samurai was. Samurai replaced Calgary Stampede, pretty much exact when it came from Chesney World Adventures, but Calgary Stampede is in at number 15, and this ride still travels. It still travels around the Surrey area. It's definitely something you can get. Someone in chat said they rode it in Southsea. I've also ridden it in Chichester. It does get around the south, so it is still out there to be ridden. Number 14, I'm going for Zodiac. Now, I know the Enterprises are quite basic, and the picture here I've used of Zodiac is the original Zodiac at the park, not the one we have now. And when this ride opened, you get Enterprises around, but I mean, just look at the detail of this ride. If you never saw the detail on this ride when it opened in 2001, it was painted correctly, it was in Lost City colours, it was alternate, had a big star on it. It looked spectacular for an Enterprise, which was quite old. It was quite an old ride. The park didn't get it new. They brought it in as a travelling attraction when there was a fire to Wicked Witch's Haunt, and it sort of ended up around there and then got placed where it is now. This ride sadly came to a demise quite quickly, this particular version of it, and is replaced by the one you see now. The one you see now is the old Enterprise from Drayton Manor, because Drayton Manor had to remove theirs due to noise complaints, and for those that wanted to know, the Drayton Manor one has been replaced by Drunken Barrels. Sophie Vogs, hello. So yeah, Zodiac, I still like it now as it is. I love a good Enterprise. I think the Enterprise is a really underrated ride. Thorpe Park carries a really low height restriction of just 0.5 meters as well, which means it is 9 times out of 10, if you've got children, it's going to be their first inverted ride, undoubtedly. And it rides brilliantly. They've got some pace, they've got some swing. It's a real shame now, but it's not just limited to this one. Obviously, they only go to 75 degrees due to evacuation purposes. However, if you ever rode one of these at a 90-degree angle, you'll know, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Now, number 13, and this possibly would have been higher on the list had I got to ride it more. I only got to ride this a couple of times, is Wicked Witch's Haunt. Now, I never rode it as Fantasia, I believe it was. I never rode it as that. It had a few changes for Wicked Witch's Haunt, but this was a classic ghost train, a real classic ghost train with some wonderful effects and some wonderful scenery, and just the picture we got of it here of skeletons holding the lamp for a chandelier really gives you an insight of what this looked like, and it looked amazing. It really did. It sat where sort of Detonator is slightly over now and unfortunately suffered a really bad fire in the 2000 season, forcing it to close and not being able to be rebuilt. But Wicked Witch's Haunt was a staple for the park, an absolute staple for the park when it opened, and it was one of the sort of earlier rides with Thunder River. Yeah, sorely missed. I'd love to have ridden this in a more modern day one. I have a feeling it would have got the Merlin treatment and probably would have been a laser gun type dual ride now. But even then, it was, yeah, amazing. I wish I'd have ridden it initially, but as Wicked Witch's Haunt, I loved it. A real, true ghost train. Now, number 12, a ride that has had a few different changes, to be fair, which is X No Way Out, X:// No Way Out. This was a world's first ride in 1996, and oddly was still a world's first ride when they first rethemed it later on in, I want to say 2013, I think it changed. This was also a 1.4 metre height restriction at the park. I never really understood why it was, but it was the world's first indoor, dark, backwards roller coaster. And sure, I know what you'll say, wasn't that interesting, but the premise around it and how they built it, and you know, the pyramid, they could have just stuck this in a plain black building, put a front on it, and gone, yep, here's your backwards roller coaster, but they didn't. They built a custom pyramid for this ride. They themed it with the colours, they did the entrance. You know, it used to have sprayers as well. I have got a picture somewhere of the sprayers, I can't find it, but these massive black posts which you see at the front used to spray water up, and the mystique around it was huge. It really, really was. It needed no scenery at all inside, really, very, very basic. It needed nothing around the ride. It had a few sound effects, but probably didn't need them as much as what it did. But yeah, it was just brilliant. It was just brilliant in every way. Stupidly brilliant in every single way. This was replaced by X, which turned into a rave disco ride. The only good thing about that is it did bring the height restriction down to 1 metre because they had individual lap bars fitted. Then it got made into The Walking Dead. Now, funnily enough, I don't have any problem with The Walking Dead. I actually quite like it. From the X disco, like, strobe light effects, I think The Walking Dead is far better. I prefer the X No Way Out to this. And, you know, I'll say we got an on-ride video of this. You can't see a thing on it. But it's on the channel. It's on the channel if you wanted to hear it, if you wanted to hear what it was like. But yeah, the stopping, the starting, the stroke, just loved everything about X:// No Way Out. Now, number 11 comes in a current ride from the park, which is Tidal Wave. And this is a spectacular viewing experience. Right the way through and through, spectacular viewing experience. If you go on the ride, you could probably work out you're going to get wet. In terms of ride experience, you go up, you come down. It can't actually be stressed any other way than that. There's no like hidden agenda to this ride, and you know, there's nothing special. But the effect, and you gauge the visuals in with the ride experience, and it just brings it all together as a spectacular ride for Thorpe Park. Now, this might have made higher in the list. This probably would have made higher in the list than Logger's Leap, which is coming up. We'll give you a spoiler, it is coming up. If it wasn't due to the fact all the effects are broken. Now, when this ride opened, it used to have, I don't know who remembers the fireball. We've got a picture of the fireball. It also used to have the water tank, which was fixed for a little bit a few years ago. It doesn't work anymore. They've got cables as well. You'll see there's pylons, electrical pylons over around by the station. They used to spark. They used to come out. You know, it had everything. The queue's fairly well themed. You know, it's like a proper disaster zone. I'm a little bit gutted, to be honest with you. They've removed the bridge, which you can actually see in the picture there, so you can't get that close to it anymore. It's a real shame that bridge has gone. It gave great views, absolute great views. But again, we were the first channel to have an on-ride POV of this on our YouTube, and yeah, people call me mad for doing it. I was mad for doing it. This is back in the day before HD, back in the day before any kind of waterproof anything. I don't ride Tidal Wave very often, but I love to stand there and watch it, especially on a hot sunny day. You know, the reaction it gets, the spray going over the roof is second to none. One of the most spectacular spectacle rides that we've got left in the UK. Now, number 10, it comes in Vortex, the KMG Afterburner, the first part model in the UK. This opened back in 2001 as part of the Holy Trinity, if you will, of rides, which included Detonator and Zodiac. Vortex is a full-size KMG afterburner. And again, this would be higher on the list if it wasn't for the fact that it just isn't run very well. Sadly, it's not, it's not what I'd expect from an afterburner anymore. Yeah, Mel, by the way, in the chat is spot on. The gas effect went because of stealth. Quite simply, it went because of stealth. But yeah, Vortex, it's a good ride. It's a good ride. You could get on a good program on it. You can still sometimes get on a good program on it, and it goes really, really well. But compared to Eagle's Claw, and even some of the travelling ones we've got that are kind of stationed at like Breen, and I won't go as far as Pleasurewood Hills one, sadly, but it's a bit weak in comparison. Parker kept it going really well. They've done some modern upgrades from it, including hydraulic floors and new restraints and things. But it could be better. It could be better. They've got a great ride. It can definitely run faster. And it's one of those real sad moments with an afterburner where if you sit in the wrong seat, you get the same ride experience throughout. It doesn't spin quick enough to do it. It can definitely be run better. And I don't understand why the Park don't, even for short cycles, to be honest with you. But that comes in number 10. Number 9, Pirates 4D. Oh, the love I had for Pirates 4D is something else. This was the first 4D show which opened at Thorpe Park, Pirates 4D starring Leslie Nielsen. The film itself came from Busch Gardens. I think it might still be shown at one of the Busch Gardens somewhere, to be honest with you. And it's just brilliant. It was so interactive. It was so funny. It had you kind of on the edge of your seat, and the effects worked really well. The 4D was brilliant. It was live action. I loved everything about this. I'm sad to this day that they're still not showing Pirates 4D in cinema, and they're showing Angry Birds. It's such a shame. But Pirates 4D had everything. It had a lovely theme going on around that area. The building was themed to it. We had the parrot, which has since moved to Alton Towers. It was a complete package for a 4D cinema. It works so well. And I'm a little bit sad as well that no one else has picked up the Pirates 4D film. I think it was one of the first, if not the first made, but it easily remains one of the best, if not the best there is. This was replaced by Time Voyagers. Anyone experienced Time Voyagers? Comment below or in the side here. This was a foreign-speaking film which was dubbed over, which didn't work and was awful. It then shut for a few years and has opened as Angry Birds 4D. And funnily enough, I don't mind Angry Birds 4D. I actually think it's quite a good show, but it's not got the rewatchability as what Pirates 4D did, and that's why that hasn't made the list, and Pirates 4D has. Coming in at number 8, Detonator. Detonator. Again, the first of the rides to open in 2001 was the officially 115 foot with drop 100 foot Fabry drop tower, which sits where Wicked Witch's Haunt was. So this is a direct replacement for Wicked Witch's Haunt. Oddly enough, is Witch's Wicked Haunt, I can't say that too fast too many times, didn't shut down. I do wonder which direction the park would have taken, and indeed whether or not we'd have got Detonator. Now, Detonator for me is the best drop tower I've been on in the UK. Undoubtedly the best drop tower I've been on. It's not that tall. It doesn't look that intimidating, but it's one of the only ones that uses hydraulics to push the cars down. So the force you get, the immediate force you get, is really strong, and it drops right the way down to well into the brakes. It's a stunning drop tower, a really stunning drop tower. We have taller ones in the UK. We have Shoot Towers, Ice Blast Cliffhanger, Apocalypse, ones like that. But this one for me does stand out as the most powerful drop tower, even though it's arguably one of the shortest. Detonator is a stunning ride, really stunning ride. If I hadn't hurt my neck so bad, I would probably ride it more. I used to ride this religiously, 2001 right the way through to 2006. I would sit on this 8, 9, 10 times a day. On quiet days, I'd just re-ride. Sadly, I can't do that anymore, but Kurt does drag me on occasionally. Sometimes I go on. But yes, I know there's a lot of love for Apocalypse. Particularly the stand-up element of Apocalypse, actually, which is quite good. Now then, number 7 is where we bring in Logger's Leap. The ride that is still standing but not operating to this day. Logger's Leap was one of the first log flumes we had, and it was the only at one point double drop in terms of the little dip in the middle log flume, in addition to being the tallest log flume. There was nothing this ride didn't pull out. You know, coming out the station, you went straight into kind of forestry area. The indoor tunnel was completely enclosed. You'd go up in the dark, you'd come down in the dark, and then you'd come out the back, and if you were lucky, you'd see the Canada Creek Railway. And if not, you know, you would really feel like you were detached from the theme park, 100%. And you would still do now as well, because there's still nothing around there. The drop itself was incredible. You know, back in the day when we were looking at like Dragon River and things with a straight drop down, the little dip in the middle of Logger's Leap, really, you took right off. You really bounced on it. It caught a lot of people by surprise. It pushed you forward, it threw you back. And you know, the drop was incredible. Easily the best part of the ride was the double drop at the end. But it had a complete package. I think the only problem was it was using river water. There were days where you know, it smelled a bit. Can't lie to you, it does smell a bit. Whereas you look at like Dragon River and indeed Legoland Pirate, whatever they call it these days, it's using fresh water, which is why, for most people, we probably don't notice why those ones have survived and these ones haven't. Now, as this ride was already open, it could have continued using river water, but any adaptations which it needed, and we did understand it needed some adaptations, and then they may have had to change the ride to use fresh water, which just isn't possible in what they've done, which I think is their official reason for it closing. Whether or not it's an actual reason for it closing, who actually knows? But it is still standing, not operating. It's definitely not cost effective to you know, to take it down and do nothing with it. Sadly, it's still there. But number seven comes in Logger's Leap. Now number 6 is another defunct ride, and that is Slammer. When it opened, it was one of only 2 S&S Sky Swats in the world, and when it closed, it was the only S&S Sky Swat in the world. And yeah, sure, it had a few problems. Back on opening, in mid-2000s, this opened with Rush. Rush was actually late opening, and this one opened first on time on the 17th of March. We were in the queue, first to ride it. And it's just, the feeling of this ride was something else. It really, really was something else. Now, sure, everyone's complaint about this was it took a long time to get on, it took a long time to get the restraints done, it took a long time to go up. You know, it just took a long time to do everything. But once it got going, the ride was second to none. There were very, very, very few thrills that Slammer wouldn't tick in a box. You know, forward rotation, backward rotation, swinging around. It was, you know, you were 100 foot in the air when you were going around on this. It was something else. And as we said, it might rate a little bit higher. One, if the park didn't have such good roller coasters, which it does. And 2, if it just had a quicker process at getting up and down. You know, you'd go for an amazing ride and you'd sit and you'd spend a minute or so coming back down, which sort of like you didn't really need. But the feeling of it, and you know, the fact this ride could also be run with just lap bars is incredible. The over-the-shoulder restraints were literally put there as show. They weren't necessary for the ride. They weren't, as with most of the S&S rides, when you look at the L Locos, which most of them don't have, it didn't need them. It didn't need them, and this one was no different. But yeah, another ride standing, not operating. They use it for training. For those that don't know why it's still there, it's used for height training because it's the tallest flat ride in the park with ladders and steps. That's why it's still at the park. Functionality wise, sadly, I think it's gone. Number 5 is one of the big roller coasters, which is Colossus. Colossus coming in at number 5. This is was the world's first 10 looping roller coaster. This opened at the park in 2002 and was iconic for the park. Quite simply, this alone changed the direction in which the park was going, changed the direction in which Chessington was going. This really changed the dynamic for the 2 parks in the south. And arguably now it doesn't ride as well as what it used to, nowhere near as what it ride as well as what it used to. And probably doesn't deserve to be so high on the list. But the reason why it's so high on the list is literally because of its stature and what it did for the park. You know, when this opened in 2002, Thorpe Park was still known, even though Vortex, Detonator and the Enterprise had opened, it was still known for, you know, your little river ride. It was still known for your model world. It was known for your flying fish. It was known for, you know, Thunder River ride. It was known for, you know, the cinema. It was just... the park wasn't known as a thrill place. But to be able to turn around and say, actually, we've got the world's first 10-looping roller coaster, the whole dynamic changed. Now, sure, it doesn't ride great these days. You can sometimes get some good seats, sometimes get some bad seats. Towards the front is generally better. But it's still a good ride, you know, and the park could still do a lot with this ride to make it great once again. Colossus comes in at number 5, a little bit on historical, you know, figure and facts. But yeah, Colossus still packs a punch, really does pack a punch. Number 4 comes the ride which came after it in 2003. Unprecedented, really, for a UK theme park to open 2 major rides in 2 years. As Thorpe Park was cementing themselves as the place to be, they opened Nemesis Inferno. The reason they piggybacked the name Nemesis is the fact that people knew what Nemesis was at Alton Towers, and they put Inferno on the end because it's themed to a volcano. It's as simple as that. That's where the name come from. This 4-inversion B&M coaster actually ticks a few boxes in a couple of different ways as well. I know this is Kurt's favourite coaster, but there are a few things on here which you don't see very often or at all on B&M rides. One of them is a pre-section before the lift hill. There aren't very many rides where, you know, you have a pre-section, you go right under the tunnel, right under the station, back out. They got mist and light effects in there before you hit the tunnel. It's very, very rare you get that on any major roller coaster, to be honest with you. It does happen, but it's quite rare. On top of that, you then have what was the world's only interlocking corkscrews. So there was, although this wasn't a world's first as such, there were things that they could sell it on, and they did sell it on. They 100% sold it on. But ultimately, it was the name that sold them on this. Name Nemesis Inferno, coming from the name Nemesis, themed to a volcano. And this is one of the best themed coasters as well at Thorpe Park I've ever seen. Whilst Colossus was quite nice, Nemesis Inferno really did take it to a different level in its theming and what they did with it. Brilliant. Nemesis Inferno, number 4. Number 3 comes in Rush. So some of you have worked out now that there's a couple of rides that haven't made the list. Rush comes in at number 3, and it is one of my favourite flat rides, full stop. It was the first one to open outside of North America, I believe, and it was the first one to open with this many seats, 32 seats. It was the biggest of its type when it opened. It was late opening, granted, it was late opening, but what a ride. A ride that can go from kind of stationary to 70 foot high in sort of 20 seconds using air pressure. Incredible. Sure, again, you could argue you don't necessarily get the greatest ride on it these days, but what this machine is capable of is just better than any flat ride we have sitting in a theme park. And the good thing is as well, you always reach maximum height. You'll always get there. The power is always the same getting there. Whilst you might want to stay there longer, it doesn't vary. The park could run it longer, but arguably couldn't run it any quicker. It's breathtaking. I think, the lap bar, the S&S lap bar, when we said about not needing over-the-shoulder restraints, it just is breathtaking, the speed in which it does it. I love Rush. I think it's a massive stable for the ride. It's easily the best flat ride the park have got. I find it incredible. Absolutely incredible. I really wish that they'd invested in some more of these, particularly Alton Towers would really benefit from a ride like this. Bit of a shame they haven't. In at number 2 is the Swarm. Now, I think when the Swarm opened in 2012, it's quite safe to say that people weren't as taken back by it as perhaps Merlin expected them to be, or indeed Thorpe Park expected them to be. It was the first year that they'd ever opened a major roller coaster and seen a decline in attendance. There might have been other factors to that as well. We had the Olympics in 2012, so people were not necessarily going to theme parks during the summer. That said, they then turned the seats backwards, completely trashed the ride, but then finally got it back to its glory. And the Swarm is a grower, an absolute grower. The first B&M wing coaster in the UK. They'd already opened one at one of their other parks in Europe. I just think it's amazing. I think the Swarm is an absolute grower. Sure, again, we could go through, we want it to be longer, and all of that. But the theme in which they put around it, it's got its own little island. It really is secluded. And, we could keep saying that things could be better, because of course they could be better. But the Swarm ticks so many boxes. And we're looking now, you know, 9 years later, it rides beautifully. It gives the same thrills. You know, it's not, you know, people were comparing it to Air in the day, but it's far more thrilling than Air. And the close elements which you come to, the Swarm is just, I think it's a really underrated coaster, a really underrated coaster. And I just wish that you know, they would just do a little bit more. It could have a little bit more. Mel thinks it's overrated. Honestly, I completely appreciate that. You know, the general consensus is Swarm is one of those you either really love or one of those you really hate. I get that. I fully get that. I just love it. I love it. I think it's incredible. I think the public have warmed to it far more than what they had done even 5 years ago. I think now Swarm is one of the ones people look at and go, I'm going to go to that one. I'm going to go that one first. I'd like to look at that one. And it ekes queues so well. The B&M reliability of that ride is, I can only think actually of one time in the last 9 years where that ride has been closed when I've gone to the park. Just one time, whereas all the other rides I could pinpoint several occasions, some of them even for months where they've been shut. The Swarm just carries on going. Love it, love it, love it. Now then, I don't know whether they're honourable mentions or not, to be honest, but some mentions for rides that didn't make the list and my reasons why they didn't make the list. The first one is Thunder River. Now, Thunder River, I remember going on this back in the late 80s and thinking it was incredible. It has not aged well. It's not aged well as a theme, obviously, because the park don't know what to do with it. And it's definitely not aged well as a rapid ride either. It doesn't really do a lot. I don't know why people would need to stand up on it. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's a bit of a shame. Again, it just feels a missed opportunity. The park haven't either extended that or just done something a little bit more spectacular with it. On top of that, we have Samurai. I know many people would probably put Samurai on their top 15 list. However, having ridden it at Chesington World of Adventures and ridden many top scans across the country, this cannot make the list. I'm really sorry. The 1 in 50 times that you get a reasonable ride on it is just not an excuse for how poorly that ride is run and the amount of downtime it has. It's one of those where, again, you can see it closed on multiple visits. So yeah, I can't put it on there. I'm really sorry. I can't put it on there. And then Saw, the ride, just in case people might think Saw the ride is going to be number 1. It's not in my top 15. I've had a bit of a love or a hate relationship with Saw since 2009 when it opened. I was lucky enough to go to a preview of it. I was one of the first people to ride Saw. And from the word go, the bottom of that drop has been a problem. And funny enough, I've said before, I spoke to the engineers that were building Swarm. We got to go really close to Swarm when that was being built. And he did say it is like 2 millimeters out of line. Simply 2 millimeters out of line. It's not a lot. And that's what causes the jolt. And of course, I've said in many vlogs, and I've said to many people, that if you stand at the bottom of the track and you look, you can see where the wheel corrosion changes on the piece of track. So you know it's out. It just makes no sense. You know it's out of sync. And sadly, it's got worse and worse and worse. I know there were people saying you could sit back left, second in, you know, with your head slightly to the side and you won't feel it. But the last few times I've been on Saw, I've literally got off and felt like my brain has been dislodged from my head. It's given me such a headache for the rest of the day and ruined my day at the park. And I can't take that risk with a ride anymore. It's just not worth it. You know, I take the roughness of Colossus and many rides in the UK I take the roughness of, but the jolt on Saw genuinely hurts. It's not a rough thing. The rest of the ride is fine. You know, after that, I don't care how fast they sling me around the corners. Couldn't care less. It's absolutely fine. But the jolt at that bottom of that drop is unbearable. So Saw, honourable mention, isn't on the list. And I think you can probably work out what number 1 is now. Number 1 is, of course, Stealth. Stealth at Thorpe Park. Opened back in 2006. This intermittent rocket coaster, as it was, you know, was unseen in this country. It still baffles me to this day why they didn't go just a little bit taller. I think it was something to do with local airport, potentially Heathrow. Why they didn't go a little bit taller to beat the record of the big one. Honestly don't know. But this thing skyrockets to 200 foot so fast. So fast. And it doesn't have a lot to the ride. I know you'll say it doesn't have a lot to the ride. But the launch on Stealth is incredible. And I know there are faster launches. 2, in fact, because for those that don't know, Stealth is the 3rd fastest launching coaster in terms of what speed it gets to over the distance of time anywhere on the planet. So Stealth is breathtaking. It has a very, very short accelerator run before it hits it. And it's just something else. It's just something else. Yeah, I could sit on Stealth all day, much like Mel could. I could just sit on there all day, and I never get bored of it. Never get bored of the rush. Never get bored of the speed. Never get bored of the views from the top. Never get bored of it. Coaster connections. Just quickly to answer that one. If they retract that bit on Saw, would it make the list? Yeah, 100%. Easy top 10. Saw, the rest of the coaster, the theme and everything else is absolutely fine. But when I come off it and I genuinely feel like someone's trapped my head in a vice, I can't put it on there because I couldn't go to Thorpe Park and ride it. It's as simple as that. I've stopped riding Saw. That's how bad it is. But yeah, Stealth comes in at our number 1. Leave your comments below. Make sure you leave your comments. Let us know your top 15. You can put your top 15 below. If not, put your top 5. We'd love to know where you are. Stealth, is there anything better? Crispy, hello. Thanks for joining us. But that is it. That is our top 15 countdown of Thorpe Park. Currently, obviously, not anything else. Another ride actually we missed, an honourable mention, is Darren Brown's Ghost Train. I'll quickly cover Darren Brown's Ghost Train as well. When we first went on that, we were blown away by it. Absolutely blown away by it. And we thought, yeah, it's a bit rough around the edges, but we were blown away by it. And then after a couple of months, we just realised that there's no reason to go back on it. There's absolutely no reason to go back on Darren Brown's Ghost Train. And we're at a point now where there's no reason to go back on Darren Brown's Ghost Train. It just has nothing. It has no re-rideability whatsoever. So even if you get on and you think this is an incredible pre-show, look at this carriage, it's absolutely incredible. The first half of the VR, I've always said, is spectacular. You get off and they've ruined it with some kind of maze when the storyline was better with the tram, and you get back on and the second half is better now than what it was. There's just no reason to go back on it. There's just no reason to go back on it. There's no surprise, there's no storyline change, there's nothing different. There's no thrill to it second time round, and sadly, for that alone, if I'd have made this a week after Darren Brown's Ghost Train come out, it probably would have been top 5, undoubtedly. But as time's gone on, that ride has worn its course. I can't see it having much of a future left at the park. But that was our top 15 for Thorpe Park. Our next top 15 will be soon, and that will be none other than Alton Towers. Make sure you go back on the channel and check out the Chesington top 15, which we did a couple of weeks ago. That is still on there as well from the live. Thank you for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe. It does mean a lot to us, and obviously means a lot